What does Jeffrey Dahmer, Ted Bundy, and Bernie Madoff all have in common? Did you say they're all psychopaths? If you did, then stick around to the end, because this video will describe 10 chilling traits of a psychopath and help you figure out if you have any psychopathic tendencies. Trait number 1. Superficial charm. Psychopaths can seem really friendly and likable on the outside, like a character from a TV show who smiles, jokes, and talks nicely to people. But here's the tricky part. Behind that charm, they might have hidden intentions. For example, in the TV series Dexter, the main character Dexter seems super nice and funny to everyone, but he's actually a secret serial killer who uses his charm to trick people and hide his dark side. So psychopaths can use their charm to get what they want, even if it's not good for others, because it's just a show they put on. Trait number 2. Lack of empathy. When we think of a psychopath, we often think of someone without any empathy or the ability to feel and relate to what someone else is feeling. This can lead to them not genuinely caring about the feelings of others or not feeling sorry when they do something wrong. Imagine you see that your friend is sad. If you have psychopathic tendencies and lack empathy, you won't bother asking them why they're sad. You won't feel bad for them or try to comfort them. This is because psychopaths are unable to really understand or relate with someone else's sadness or pain like most people can. In 2013, a group of researchers studied 121 inmates from a medium security prison in the United States, where the prevalence of psychopathy is 23% compared to about 1% in the general population. The inmates were shown images of physical pain like getting a finger caught in a door or something heavy falling on a toe, while having their brains scanned through an fMRI. Afterwards, the inmates were told to imagine the accident happening to them or someone else. When they imagined it happening to them, the researchers saw all the areas associated with empathy in the brain light up. But when they imagined it happening to someone else, none of those brain regions lit up. In fact, the area of the brain involved in pleasure lit up instead. This research concluded that psychopaths do not experience empathy when others are in pain. Instead, they take pleasure in it. A quick reminder before we move into the next trait: if you find value in our content, please consider subscribing to the channel and hitting that like button so you won't miss any of our future content. Your support means everything to us. Let's keep going. Trait number 3. Manipulative behavior. Do you know someone who you would describe as manipulative? Someone who is good at tricking and controlling people to get what they want, even at the expense of hurting someone. Psychopaths have an innate ability to deceive and influence others without feeling guilt or remorse. For example, picture a scenario where there's a character who pretends to be deeply involved in a charity organization. They put on a show of being caring and compassionate, convincing others to donate their hard-earned money to this charity. However, their real motive is to embezzle the donated funds for their own enrichment, without any concern for the well-being of those who trusted and donated. Psychopaths are often exceptionally adept at manipulating people's emotions, thoughts, and actions to serve their selfish interests. What sets them apart is their lack of guilt or remorse for exploiting others in this way. So they can be very convincing and persuasive, but their intentions are typically self-centered and often harmful to others. Trait number 4. Impulsivity. Do you act on your impulses? Someone with this trait will act on impulses without a second thought. We all have impulses, but the difference is someone with this psychopathic tendency will act without thinking about what might happen next. They don't pause to think of the possible bad outcomes. Instead, they go ahead and do things on a whim. For example, imagine someone with this psychopathic trait walks into a museum and they see a red button with a sign saying, "Do not touch." Most people would stop and think about the consequences, like getting into trouble or damaging something valuable. But this person doesn't hesitate. They impulsively press the button out of curiosity, not caring about the possible consequences. Trait number 5. Deceitfulness. Can you think of someone who lies for no reason? They have no reason to deceive someone. There's nothing they'll gain from this, but they do it anyway. I'm not talking about the white lies that everyone tells from time to time. I'm talking about grand old stories that seem impossible to be true. Imagine someone who might make up an elaborate story about how they're related to a famous person, or fabricate lies about things they have achieved in life. For example, they might say they're related to Albert Einstein, or they might say they graduated first in their class in high school and went to Oxford University where they studied quantum physics and contributed to research about time travel. Because they feel no remorse, regret, or shame about lying, it might be really hard to detect if they're really telling the truth. Trait number 6. Shallow emotions. Another key trait of a psychopathic individual is their inability to bond with others because of their superficial nature. Imagine you're in a relationship with someone like this. In an argument, they might get very angry and break up with you in an instant. But the next day, they act like everything is normal and don't understand why you're still upset. This makes it hard to have a deep, lasting connection with them. Trait number 7. Lack of remorse. Imagine you have a friend named Jack. Jack might borrow money from his friends and promise to pay it back, but he never does. Most people would feel bad about not keeping their promise and hurting their friend's trust, but Jack doesn't seem to care. He doesn't feel guilty or sorry at all. When confronted about it, he says things like, "Well, I needed the money more than you did," or "You shouldn't have lent it to me in the first place." So a lack of remorse in psychopathy means that these individuals often don't feel guilty for their hurtful actions, and they may even try to find reasons to justify what they did. This can make them seem unapologetic and insensitive to the feelings of others. Trait number 8. Irresponsibility. Psychopathic individuals often have a track record for not being dependable or responsible. They might not follow through on their commitments, make impulsive decisions without thinking about the consequences, and fail to plan for the future. Because of their lack of dependability, they might make promises to friends and family to do something important, but fail to follow through at the last minute. They might do things like impulsively gamble away all their salary despite knowing they have bills to pay. Their irresponsibility also makes them unpredictable. Trait number 9. Criminal behavior. Not all psychopaths are criminals, and not all criminals are psychopaths. But some people with psychopathic traits have a history of breaking the law or doing things against the law just for the fun of it. Studies have found that 25% to 30% of people with psychopathic traits have a history of criminal behavior. This means they could have been involved in activities like theft, fraud, or even violent crimes. Trait number 10. Impaired relationships. Imagine being in a relationship with someone who has any one of the traits we discussed in this video. It wouldn't come as a surprise to you that psychopathic individuals find it difficult to have healthy, long-lasting relationships with others due to their long list of negative traits. They can be in relationships, but those relationships might not last long. It's important to note that despite these negative psychopathic tendencies, not all psychopaths end up as serial killers we hear about in the news or watch on TV shows and movies. Some actually end up as CEOs in big companies. This is because they have some positive traits too. They can be incredibly sharp when it comes to details. They're great at being engaging conversationalists, figuring out what other people are thinking, and they can be really precise. Psychopathy isn't a black and white thing. It's more like a spectrum, meaning we all have a bit of it in us to some extent. In the United States, around 1.2% of adult men and 0.3 to 0.7% of adult women show some significant psychopathic traits. So, believe it or not, you probably know people with a range of psychopathic traits, like at work, in your family, or among your friends and neighbors. One important thing to understand is that psychopathy isn't an official mental health diagnosis. There's a debate among mental health experts about whether it should be because they worry the label might be too stigmatizing, and they're not sure if they can accurately measure traits like being uncaring or cruel. I hope this video helped you understand psychopathic tendencies a bit more. But keep in mind, having some of these psychopathic tendencies does not automatically make you a psychopath. If you are truly concerned about any psychopathic tendencies you might have, reach out to a mental health professional with expertise to help you figure out answers to your questions. Don't forget to leave a comment below and let us know your thoughts about psychopathy. As always, don't forget to spread loving kindness to all beings around you and be the change you want to see in the world. Thank you. See you next time.